First and foremost, I want to thank CR for bellying up to the bar and filling in for Matt. We had had this planned for a couple of years that Matt Dow was supposed to be speaker this year and then CR next year. When Matt called me and his father was ill and has since passed on, CR graciously, well, I had to push you a little bit, graciously volunteered to fill in. And it's been a rough year for the Neales too, because we lost Capt. Charlie earlier this year. And I would like to thank the Neales, grandmother, Richard, and Carol for, well, and you too, Ramsey, for loaning him to us. He's been an absolutely marvelous, viable addition to this organization. I don't know how many of you know that he runs the web page. He's our tech boy, and he's kind of my kid too. First met him when he was about 2 or 3, a little red-headed powerhouse. He's a little bigger now, and thank you. Our next generation. Now I get the other kid in the group to kind of be fun. Taylor, my other son. He refers to Dale and I as Dad and Grandpa. So.
Lovingly. So you know it's going to be a very good speaker when you have to have 2 introductions. So as many of you know, CR began his career with his father. We'll go back. There you go. See? He began with his grandfather and his father and his grandfather at a very young age, working on the boat and working in the family business throughout high school and in college. So, as he did this, he ended up receiving his pilot's license in 2007, and I think you're on now your 4th issue. So he's moving right along, as many of you other captains have done. He's working his way through his. At the same time, he was a Marshall University student and eventually graduated with a degree in business management in 2008. So when you see him out, he's usually in a green shirt. He's got a closet full of green shirts, as Ramsey can tell you. And we always laugh because I tell him all the time, I don't know you without a green shirt on. So he's been a board member of S&D since 2017. I was one of the younger members on there, and CR joined me, so we've kind of been a tag team, dynamic duo that Jeff kind of has to keep us in line at times when we're being ornery. Not that we'd ever be, but and as you can see here, he's also a member of the American Stern Wheel Association with his beautiful boat, the Joe S., which he's going to tell us about. So if you're not familiar with CR, when he's not working, you can find him at any number of places doing any number of things. Most recently, you could catch him wearing a patriotic bikini along the wharf and appearing on the 11 o'clock news in the background wearing it. We're not going to show that video tonight. You might find him hosing himself off after having slid into the river and using a garden hose to hose the sludge off your legs. So, or perhaps, as today happened, he was stripping a mannequin to get the T-shirt off of it that was in the only collar that was left that he wanted. For my wife. For his wife. But, in all seriousness, no, it is my true pleasure to introduce and welcome someone that I'm not only proud to call a friend, but one of the greatest assets that this organization has, and I can't speak highly enough of him. He's a good friend of mine. He's been an excellent person for this organization when we're working to develop things. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Captain C.R. Neale III.
To my credit, it was my wife's doing to get me in the patriotic bikini. But it was my doings on getting on the 11 o'clock news. I failed to get on the 7 o'clock news, so I was very driven to get on the 11 o'clock news, and I succeeded. So thank you for the introductions. So as you can see, I will talk tonight about the adventures of our boat last year, Joe S. Some of you saw it last year, and it has come a very long way since it was here last year. So I will start out kind of as Gary started out last year, is why in the world would anyone want to buy a stern wheel boat? So it's really been a long-term goal of the Neale family to actually have a stern wheel boat. In the 80s, we were offered the Claire E, and we really weren't in a financial position to take on the Claire E at that time. So later in the 90s, the Juanita, which you heard Eddie Shear talk about a couple years ago, we were in bidding for the Juanita. And regretfully, we were the second highest bidder of the Juanita, and we missed out there. So we have had two chances. That's Dad actually there. AEP actually would not let me look at the Juanita because I was like 8 years old. Well, sorry. So, oh well. So we've always really been on a hunt for a stern wheel boat, but we never really found anything we really wanted. We wanted something historic. We wanted something original. We wanted something with Tonys, something that looked like a towboat. And nothing really ever presented itself until pretty much 2020. So this was a boat that was for sale in Pickwick, Tennessee. And the distance was the biggest detracting factor. Like, man, this boat is in Tennessee. How in the world are we going to get this thing home? And we were considering stuff in Cincinnati. There was a boat for sale in Cincinnati that we'd looked at. There was a boat for sale in Wheeling, but nothing really felt right. And one day I just said, Dad, hey, I'm going to Tennessee. We're going to go look at this boat. And that kind of all started from there. So a little bit of a background on this boat is some of you all probably attended the christening, as you had told me last year. This boat was the Columbia. This boat was built by Tucker Marine. Tucker Marine was based in Cincinnati, and they built lots and lots of towboats. And they built even a couple passenger boats too. When Tucker Marine wrapped up operations there in the 80s, Gordon and Marilyn Tucker decided, we want a boat that we can live on. And that's what they did. They built the Columbia, and they lived on that boat. That boat is 84 feet long, and it is 20 feet, 0.4 wide, and it is driven by a Perkins diesel. Now, if you know Tucker boats, they love their Perkins engines. And same thing with this boat. Has a Perkins engine in it. It is 135 horsepower, and it is in a 3-to-1 reduction gear, and that 3-to-1 reduction gear goes to a 30-to-1 conveyor gear, and it is basically for every 100 revolutions of the engine, turns one time. So very, very big reduction. So I wish Bill Judd was here to thank him. He actually presented me these photos last year, so these are the only photos that I have as of right now of the boat under construction. So here is another boat. This is actually taken at Augusta, and this is actually her in the water, one of the first years that she was, after she had gotten underway, the T on the stack for Tucker. And I really can't tell the other boats in the background, but she looks really good in this photo. So, in the 90s, Gordon and Marilyn sold the boat, and the boat actually went to St. Paul, Minnesota. And a guy that worked for 3M, he actually bought the boat and took it from Cincinnati to St. Paul. And he lived on that boat from, I think they sold that boat in 94. And he lived on that boat in St. Paul until 2007. And that's actually when this photo was taken, when he sold it to an interest on the Tennessee River, and they were moving it from St. Paul to the Tennessee River at that time, and my friend just happened to capture a shot of this boat underway, and in all honesty, the pictures here are kind of the pictures that sparked our interest in this boat. You know, we knew how good this boat looked. I mean, she looks like a towboat. She's got tow knees. She really fits the bill. So there's another photo here. I mean, she's moving right along and looks great. So December 2020, we decide, all right, let's go down here and look at this thing. Let's go check it out. Went down there, it was cold. I mean, for Tennessee, it's basically you're on the Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama. You're in that triangle right there. We went down to this boat. It actually hadn't run in months, maybe even a year. And so I was like, well, you know, when you're buying a boat, you want to kick the tires, you want to light her up, you want to see what she's going to do. Went back to the engine room, see my breath, freezing cold. Go back there, hit the starting button, fires right up. It was like it run yesterday. It's like, wow, all right. Fired her up, put her in gear, went right in gear, spun right up, did great. So the boat was actually, you know, the owner that owned it at this time, he rented the boat out. He actually was the owner. He bought the Winnie Mae. He actually lived on this boat from 2010 until when he bought the Winnie Mae in 2016. And so that's the reason why he was selling this boat. But in the meantime, he was renting it out. So it had a lot of stuff on it. It was on the lake. It had lily pads. I mean, you couldn't walk through the engine room. I mean, it was like you almost needed a map to snake through the thing to get through everything. But, you know, when you look at it, you kind of look beyond all that stuff. You got to look at the guts of it. It's kind of a house, you know. It can be a horrible house, you know, cosmetically, but you got to see the guts, you know, are the engine good, or the hull good, is cabin good, you know, see beyond it. And really, we saw what she could become. And that's kind of what led us to purchase the boat. So in December 2020, right after Christmas, we made an offer and we dealt, and the offer was accepted. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year 2020. So then the planning started, and that is the biggest. You can see the map here. You're all the way down in that Alabama-Mississippi line, and you've got 968 miles to go. You can't load this thing. It's 86 foot long, 20 foot wide. You can't load it up on a truck and a trailer and haul it up there. You got to run it home. There ain't no way around it. You got to run it home. There's 13 locks in that stretch. You go across Kentucky Lake and all the way up to Lower Ohio. So obviously, you saw the date, December 2020. We had no interest. You know how the water is on the Ohio River, Tennessee River, whatever. In the middle of December, it can be beautiful or it could be in the building here at Marietta. Heaven, hope not, but it could be. So as part of the deal, as the purchase of this boat, we said, all right, you hold this boat until May the 1st. You pay the rent, it was in a dock area right there inside Pickwick Lake. Said, you hold this boat until May the 1st, and we'll come down May the 1st and come get it. So that was the plan. We'll see if that plan worked out. So, in the meantime, we had plenty of time to start working back home on what we wanted to do to get the thing home. You know, the boat, Obviously, that stretch of river, I have not navigated most of that stretch of river. I have navigated from Mount Vernon, Indiana, north to Parkersburg, West Virginia, and beyond. From Mount Vernon, Indiana, down, ain't seen it before. Kentucky Lake, ain't seen it before. And we knew that we were probably going to hit most of Kentucky Lake in the middle of the dark. And after hearing John Hartford's song, Kentucky Pool Made a Fool Out of Me, I had no interest of doing that without all the help that I could get. So what you see in this photo to the left is the AIS equipment. Now, AIS is a way for boats to communicate with one another, their positions and their speed. And I wanted that on the boat. That way, every towboat, every person, every tow hauling 15 barges can see, hey, there's another boat out here. I'm not going to try to run over him today. And vice versa. I wanted to be able to see where they were. And then the other program is called Rose Point, and it can give you, it uses your speed, their position, and it'll tell you, all right, you are going to meet in that location. And if you are very unfamiliar with the river, that is a phenomenal tool to have. So we wanted to do it, and we wanted to be very safe because my mother was already a nervous wreck. When I tell her I'm bringing a boat 968 miles home, and I'm doing it, she's like, no. So luckily she pays the bills, and luckily she paid all the bills on all the electronics to put on this boat to bring home. She had no problem signing that check. So later on, the packing started to begin. We didn't quite make our May time frame because it was water. That 2021, seemed like every time we thought about going, all right, crap ton of rain. All right, that ain't gonna work. We had no desire to come down Tennessee River at 13 mile an hour and up the Ohio River at 2 mile an hour, when we could wait for better water. So that's what we did. We waited for better water. And then we get better water, and then everybody that I had lined out to make the trip, oh no, I'm busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So it was just a constant, logistics, just the logistics of the whole deal was crazy. But we finally got the logistics worked out, and in August, basically in the end of July, early August of 2021, we decided, all right, this is time. It's time to go. I had a friend, and he jokingly said, well, call me up, I'll make a trip with you. And I thought he was just kind of being friendly, and so I called him back a couple weeks later. It's like, are you serious about wanting to make this trip with me? He's like, yeah, sure, it'll be a great trip. Come on, let's go. I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's go. All right. So he lived in East Liverpool, I live in Parkersburg. We call, text, whatever. We worked out all the logistics of this trip. And, as a boat owner, you try to figure out every single thing that you might need on the trip. You try to figure out every single thing that might go wrong. That way it doesn't kind of hit you blindsided when something does go wrong. And stuff did go wrong. But you can see here we wanted a 20-foot U-Haul. But regretfully, when we decided to do this trip, every kid in the United States was moving to college, and so every U-Haul in the United States was busy. So we went and we found a U-Haul. There was a 20-foot U-Haul in Athens. Oh, okay, yeah, went to start, go get it. No, it's gone. All right. So, there's a 25-foot U-Haul in Woodsfield, Ohio. I was like, well, Taylor lives up there, I can get up there and get that. Called them up, and they said, where are you taking this thing to? I was like, Iuka, Mississippi. They were like, this thing ain't got air conditioning. Do you really want to take a U-Haul to Mississippi without air conditioning? He's like, no. Nope. And so finally we got a U-Haul. We had to drive to Charleston, West Virginia to get the U-Haul. So we had to drive to Charleston to get the U-Haul, take it all the way back home and load it, and then go all the way back we came to go down there. So you can see here I have oil. You never know if you blow an oil hose. You just never know. So go to Rural King, buy almost all the oil they have, wait for them to restock, go buy more oil. And the U-Haul, I got two cases of grease right there. And I'm like, well, you never know. The boat hasn't moved probably in 2 years, so everything's probably all seized up, and there's 20 million things to grease on this boat. So there you go. And you can see tools. And finally, we get the packing all done, and you can see I got tools, I got chop rags, I got oil, got a fire pump. You know, you hope you don't have a fire, but if you do have a fire, you want to have a kind of a way to put it out. So took a fire pump and a big 3-inch gasoline pump. So if you hit something, hopefully your gasoline pump can keep up and you don't have to use your mattress to try to stuff the hole. So August 2021, the journey finally began. We took this U-Haul. It got like 8 miles a gallon. We thought, man, this is killer. And, you know, every single bridge joint from, you know, Parkersburg, West Virginia to Pickwick, Tennessee, you hit it and you feel like the whole crazy thing is going to jump up and down. We even loaded a John boat in the back. That way, in case we broke down, at least we can launch the John boat over the side, tie it to the side of the boat, fire it up, and go shove us in somewhere. That way, at least you got some way to try to get to shore. So we thought every single contingency that we thought, all right, this might happen, this is what we're planning for, this is what we're going to do. We thought everything was there. Well, we'll see. So finally, we get down to Pickwick, Tennessee. It was late at night. We done traveled. It was an 8-hour trip. We stopped for lunch. We finally made it right at dark. And, of course, I had magnetic name boards. So instantly, there goes the new name, Joe S. New name on it. Hooray. So we had planned on leaving in the morning, but we decided, man, there's a lot of stuff to do, to load, to move, to hook up, everything. But one thing we did find out is we were like, how in the world are we going to get a John boat out of the back of a U-Haul into Pickwick Lake? And so somebody finally decided, well, you know what? Why don't we just back the U-Haul truck down a boat ramp and just back the tail of it down in the water? Surprisingly, it actually really works. You back that sucker all the way down to where the tail lights are submerged, slide that John boat right out, and away you go. So luckily, when we took the U-Haul back, they just did a little walk around. All right, yep, looks good, yep. Sorry about your tail lights that are full of water, but oh well. So spent a whole day loading the boat up, get her all loaded up, looking good. So we worked hard, got all electronics hooked up, got everything tested out, fired the boat up, got watered up, get everything going. So finally about 8 o'clock at night, we were like, finally, we're done. All right. We actually thought about leaving that night. I'm like, man, we are so stinking tired. We're going to crash. No. So went to bed, got up in the next morning, and good to go. So there's our crew. So Captain Steve Price was my helper. So me and him basically ran the boat all the way back from Iuka, Mississippi, Pickwick Lake to here. So, of course, this boat is in a harbor, and it's all, we call them plastic boats. They're fiberglass boats, and if you hit that boat with a steel boat, you're having a very bad day. And back from where this boat is parked, there's a really nice boat that I was told the night before, was owned by the CEO of a very prominent auto parts company. And I was like, you know what? This is going to suck. So the former owner of the boat was down there in the morning and he was helping us get everything checked out. And he's like, boy, I'm just going to miss this boat. It's like, you want to run her one last time? You know, you can back her out of here and get her out of the harbor. Sure! So he backed that boat out. You had to back her out of the hole. You had to flank her around 90 degrees, and you had to come ahead on it at a 45-degree angle with the wind blowing. He got it out of there. It was great. I was like, all right, yeah. Of course, it's got a bow thruster. You can cheat, but, you know, it'll still catch it really hard. So we get the boat out, and I take over, and I'm missing a slide. Maybe not. Oh, well. So we get her out, and away we go. We get a little shot of fuel, and away we go. We depart on the 10th at 11 a.m., and we are gone. And 2 hours later, we got to make our first lock. So pull down into Pickwick Lock. It's a pretty big drop, wind blowing, and we ain't got the lock ready yet, kind of sort of deal. So you're sitting there trying to snake around not to hit anything, and finally we get the lock chamber open and go down, and I run her down in there, and we got a nice bumper back on the back, and come into the wall, the stern hits really hard in a recess, and there goes my bumper. So really nice lock man, I will say. He got his spike pole, and he drug that sucker all the way back to our boat. And that's service right there. You don't get that service at every lock. They'll be like, that's our bumper now. Sorry about your luck. But this was our official start. The first day, you get underway about 10 miles, not even 10 miles later, and you're going to make a lock. So we were making about 6-7 mile an hour above the lock. And we get down out of the lock. Of course, these locks are all, Tennessee River locks are all hydro projects. So every day, the start of the day, they're not running a whole lot of water. By the end of the day, they're running water because everybody needs power. So we come out of there mid-afternoon and get underway, and we're making, I think that says 8.6 mile an hour. Like, dang on, we're doing pretty good. So moving right along. You can see a little whisker on the buoy, and like, man, we're going to make it pretty darn good here. So we work all day, Tennessee River is nice and pretty, and we get to sunset and keep making miles, and it's like, man, everything's going good. No problems, no nothing. Boy, we're doing pretty good. So I go to bed, and I get back up about midnight, and I take over, and we are in a stretch. Basically, you're at the upper end of Kentucky Lake, and you're not in really Kentucky Lake, but you're getting there, but this area there ain't nothing there. There is nothing there. And I've always, my grandfather and I made a lot of dark stretches on the Ohio River where we got lost. And thank goodness I had good maps, because this place right here, it was dark, dark, dark. You got Memphis, Tennessee over here, 200 miles, you can see the lights. You got Nashville, Tennessee over here, and that's all there is, 300 miles. So I saw stars that night that I ain't ever seen before on the upper Ohio River. So the next morning, you can see we started into a few problems. I ran all night, snaking down. We got right there to upper end of Kentucky Lake, and I went to bed, and I woke up, and I was like, good Lord, it's hot in here. Well, our air conditioning system uses raw water out of the lake as a heat exchanger to cool the boat. Well, damn thing plugged up. All the wave action, it just plugged that sucker up. So we spent all afternoon trying to figure out, it's a brand new boat. You've been on it for 24 hours. You ain't got no idea where nothing is. So thank goodness we had good cell phone service. Called the former owner. Hey, air conditioner ain't working. What in the world do we do? He's like, hey, go down in this hole right here. There's a strainer right here. Pull the tabs off of it. Get it up out of there. So we did. We fought with it. It worked okay, but we were having problems. What it turned out to be was all the wave action on Kentucky Lake. You hit all these waves, and it blows air into your system, and it vapor locks the system. So basically all the way across Kentucky Lake, we had 0 AC, and the heat index was 100 plus on a steel boat. It was not fun. I am not a person that likes anything without air conditioning, so we were not having a very good time. So finally, we get down the lower stretch of Kentucky Lake, and we check out the number of boats in turn, and there's like 12 hours of lock delay. We're like, no, this ain't happening. So the good thing about that stretch is you can cut across Barkley Canal and get on the Cumberland River and come down Barkley Lock. And Barkley Lock had 0 wait time. It adds about 10 miles of the trip, but made it through with no delay. We was like, you know what? We'll make that 10 miles in an hour. Let's go. So we went across the Barkley Canal, cut over to the Cumberland River, and my buddy that took the pictures of this boat, if you'll see the name is the same, he took the pictures of this boat in 2007. I called him and said, hey, come to Barkley Canal and come get pictures of us. So he came there and got pictures of us, and so there's our John boat on the back, ready to go. But luckily, you can see the 2 little streams of water over the side. That's our air conditioning. So our air conditioning actually in this picture was working, and we were very happy for that. So there is my second lock that I make, and the wind's blowing straight sideways and blowing you around everywhere, but we made it down in. Great, no big problems. So got down out of the lock, and same deal. We're coming out of there pretty well right before sunset. They're running a good little bit of water, not as much as they could be, but still a good little shot, making 9 mile an hour out of there. We're like, man, we're going to be at the Ohio River in like 3 hours. Ooh, this is nice. So we finally got to the Ohio River. We did make the turn there shy of midnight. So no pictures making the turn on the Ohio River. So we were at least happy to be back northbound. Until we checked the weather report. Now, when we left, there was absolutely, we check everything. And hurricanes is one thing we check because we know what hurricanes and floods have in common sometimes. So we check this news report and like, man, this might not be good. But the good thing at this time was a lot of the models had the storm coming up. Not good for the people of Tennessee, but they said it was going to come kind of right up through, a little bit west of Nashville. So we're like, man, that's going to hit the Ohio River, pretty down. We'll be way out ahead of that. We'll see. So we're back northbound on the Ohio River, and we were definitely not making 9 mile an hour. This whole time that we were getting ready at Pickwick, it was raining like crazy in southern Indiana. And when you get that, well, you get tributaries that are running a lot of water. This is below Raleigh Bar, and a lot of drift on this buoy, and not making too great a time. I think we were making 4 or 5 mile an hour. It still wasn't great, but it's not as fast as you want to be making. Of course, we did have some nice scenery. This is an eagle. We spent a whole day watching eagles fight for fish down here below mouth of Wabash River. So luckily, we were clear over on the shore at Raleigh Bar, so you got to see them eating snacks and whatever you saw. So finally, we get even further north, and we get up about the mouth of Wabash River and keep checking the speed. Like, man, 2.5 mile an hour. This ain't fun. This just ain't fun. So luckily, when we got above the mouth of the Wabash River, we started making some good time again. So got into John T. Myers late in the afternoon and doing pretty good. We're like, you know what? We were checking our fuel. We're like, man, we thought we could make it to Louisville for fuel. And then we started running the numbers. We're like, man, we are going to be on empty getting into Louisville. And when you get into empty on a towboat, it's hard to tell what kind of crud you are sucking into your engine. Like, man, this is not a part of the river that we want to be fighting fuel filters and fighting crud and fighting all the junk. So we're like, you know what? We'll just get into Evansville and we'll get some fuel. So this is that night, right there below Henderson, Kentucky. This is Cypress Bend. And we're like, man, I love this stretch of river, and coming around there, nice sunset. And we're like, man, we'll be at Evansville about midnight. And we did. We made it into Evansville about midnight. And a little marina there. And the marina is actually owned by the person that used to own the Winnie Mae before the guy that owns it now. So they were very, very happy to have a stern wheel boat back in the harbor and gave us a place to stay, put us on shore power for the night. And we got some fuel there. And at the time, we thought that $3.71 for fuel was, holy cow, that's expensive. But in retrospect, I'd love to get $3.71 of fuel again. So we woke up that morning. They opened at 8. We got some fuel, and we got filled back up to the top. We're like, you know what? We can make it all the way to Parkersburg, West Virginia now and not get fuel. So we're cooking. We're doing good. So we got underway that morning, and just great day, nothing broken down, but we got right above the Dade Park bridges. They're about 6 miles above Evansville, and boy, this is a nice day. And me and Steve were sitting in the pilot house, just, enjoying the scenery. We were about mouth of Green River, and all of a sudden we have a roof air conditioner. And all of a sudden the roof air conditioner just shuts down. That's weird. And we start going through the boat, and man, what's going on here? And going through the boat, and ain't got no lights. Uh-oh. So we investigate, and the generator had shut down. That's weird. So I went downstairs. It's got a remote panel. We shut the remote panel down, fired it back up. All right, that was a fluke. That's weird. Get going again. 10 minutes later, generator shuts down. Oh, crap. So, I do like my AC, but I can survive without it. But the problem was the generator was powering all your mapping system. Plus, we were 800 some miles away from home at this point with a refrigerator full of food. How are we going to keep that food cold? You ain't. So we kept fighting with the generator, and we got up to Newburgh Lock and decided this ain't going to work. So luckily, with having the AIS on there, I can see all the boats in the area. And I looked behind me, and right there coming up through Evansville was a familiar name. I was like, I bet that boat is going to Parkersburg, West Virginia and beyond without any stops. So I called Dad. I was like, hey, we're having some problems. We better start phoning a friend. I think we're going to need towed northbound because I don't think we're going to have a damn generator. So we spent it, of course, this was about 1 o'clock on a Friday, and, everybody at 5 o'clock, see ya. So you got to really get stuff done quick. So luckily, we got stuff done quick, and, of course, that boat was having generator problems. So, oh, jeez. So we said, no, we'll wait. So we got above Newburgh Lock, and I called the lock. We tied off on the sails. We're like, hey, we're going to sit here. We're waiting on a boat northbound to come up behind us. He's going to pick us up, and he's going to take us northbound. Okay, that's a good spot to lay. We'll tell nobody to come in there and back in beside you and crunch you. So, hey, thanks. So we sat there, beautiful sunset right there at Newburgh Lock, and waited all night. And finally at 4 a.m., our ride shows up. So we fire up, get over in tow, and thank God we had tow knees. Had winches, so we faced up to this tow, and the rest of the way northbound, we actually had a ride northbound. So kind of nice, you got a cruise, and so this is actually the Andrew Ann Trainer, and they were 15 barge tow, destined all the way through to Wheeling, West Virginia, no stops. So I picked a good one. So, but regretfully, I'll wait for that. We get up in Candleton Lock. We actually kept running the whole way. We're like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if this boat's going to steer us out of tow or something. We want to keep running just in case that we got to come ahead on it, get back in tow, or we're not. So Candleton Lock, we said, all right, we're doing all right here. We shut the engine down. We actually tied the wheel down and, keep everything safe, any problems from happening to our running gear, engine, or anything like that. So everything's going pretty good right now, and we're like, all right. So we're sitting there and coming up there above Candleton, and me and Steve were actually sitting downstairs in the lounge, a couple of couches there, and we hear this god-awful thud on our window. We're like, what in the world was that? And I'm sure you all have seen videos of Asian carp, and we got attacked by an Asian carp. We actually had window screens on our windows right there, and that Asian carp jumped all the way out of the water and hit that window. We were actually this is Wolf Creek right here, and it's a big, huge bend, so he's steering hard over to make this bend. He's full ahead, got everything churned up and crazy, and these Asian carp, they do not like any disturbance. So that thing plumb jumped out. We thought it almost broke the window. Luckily, it didn't. So luckily, that was the only problem of that night. So keep on keeping on. We're like, oh, okay, that was weird. So, of course, it's blood on the deck and everything. I didn't put that picture in. So the next day, we get up and get into McAlpine Lock and get going through there and make the lock really good and get shoving up out of there of the canal. We had to wait on a boat to come down in there, and same spot. We were sitting in the lounge, and all of a sudden the boat went boom. Well, we went out. We could not figure out. We had no idea what it was. Well, if you look on this thing right here, there is a little dot right there. That is a submerged 12-inch pipe or so, and that thing went underneath the tow, and when it came underneath the rake of those barges, it came up and hit the bow of the boat, and it shuttered the whole boat. Thank goodness we didn't have to fire the 3-inch pump up, but gave you a good little scare. So luckily no damage, but it's still, we were always on our toes through this trip. So we get up out of McAlpine, everything gets good, making Markland Lock in the middle of the night. Beautiful night, still beautiful weather. We actually, in this tow, we were making a mile an hour better being towed upriver than we were running upriver. So, boy, this is great fuel savings. We're doing pretty good. So we actually get to Cincinnati the next day, and I've been in contact with the Tucker family, and the Tucker family wanted to see this boat, coming northbound. Well, regretfully, our initial plan of running by them northbound didn't work, but luckily we were on the port side, so they were all able to see this boat go by. So here the entire contingent is of the Tucker family, happy to see the Columbia again for the first time in Cincinnati since 1994. And luckily, I keep doing that. Luckily, we have our S&D board member here. Okay, what did I do? Can't run the electronics. Luckily, we've got Vic Canfield right here watching us. So, but the Tucker family was very happy. You can see Gordon is over there by the van. He was very happy to see his boat again and seeing it back on the Upper Ohio River a little closer to home. So again, still going northbound, still going pretty well, good, not too many hiccups. Beautiful nights, beautiful days, nice river. Well, regretfully, that doesn't usually end up. So the storm that we were tracking decides to take a turn pretty well right up in our neck of the woods. Of course, we're not running, so it ain't a big problem, but when your tow hits that wall of water, if a hurricane drops 4 to 6 inches of rain in an area like that, we were expecting, man, this is really going to be slow goings. So we're like, well, we're in for the long haul now. We'll keep on keeping on. So there we are below Greenup Block, Wheelersburg. I think that this was probably the most photoed boat move of 2021, if I must say. So we actually had people come up beside us on Kentucky Lake, take pictures, and we were like, well, we're going to be on Facebook pretty soon. So this is another, friend of mine. He was right there below Greenup Block taking pictures. So, and I was actually wearing a blue shirt, not green, blue. So luckily, here we are. This is Virginia Point, and this is the mouth of the Big Sandy River right here. So right here is the Big Sandy River. So you got West Virginia right here. You got Kentucky right here. So we were very, very happy to be back in home waters. We're just over 100 miles away from home. Boy, we're doing pretty good. We're moving right along. Or so we thought. Regretfully, that day we learned, a boat that we would run all the way northbound with got a turnboat sent southbound. And they were turning in the middle of the rain, in the middle of the tropical storm. It was not a fast event. It rained and rained and rained. I don't know if I've ever seen it rain that hard on a boat anytime I've been out. But luckily, we got back underway. Of course, they were planning on stopping for fuel. We're like, guys, you have a wall of water coming at you. But luckily, it didn't end up as bad. It rained right where we were, but it didn't really rain as far north, so water really came up really good right where we were. But it rained hard for a very long time that night. Luckily, I walked around all the boat. I was like, man, this thing, you're going to have leaks everywhere. We're going to need buckets. We're going to need trash cans. We're going to need to get the trash out of here to soak up all the holes or whatever. But luckily, no leaks. I was a pessimist at that point. So this was actually, when the storm came through, this was the storm rain total. And wouldn't you know it, we were right here. Right in the middle of the yellow blob. We had 2 inches of rain in 6 hours on us. I wish I had a rain gauge, but it was crazy. So luckily, it wasn't as bad as we thought. And we get above Ravenswood, and that evening we're right there about Buffington Island, and it was just like deja vu. Now, some of you were here in Hurricane Ivan 2004 in this building. And the craziest thing about Hurricane Ivan was that Sunday, I thought was the most beautiful weather you had ever had. It was the most gorgeous day. You had the most horrible day, Friday and Saturday. Sunday was the most gorgeous weather there ever was. Same deal. That night, it was just deja vu of Hurricane Ivan. That storm moved through, and it was just the most beautiful night there was on the river. So luckily, we got to Parkersburg, West Virginia the next morning. We got fired up, and away we went. We were a mile from home. They took us right to our doorstep. So talk about curbside concierge service. So 8 days and 20-some hours later, we made it home. Hallelujah. My mother came down there of a sigh of relief, like, oh, thank goodness. I'm glad you're home in one piece. So, some of you may be asking, why in the world would you take the name off of a boat that's had that name since it's been built to change it? Well, we decided that Joe S. was a historic name and it needed to be restored on a sternwheel boat no matter what it was. So here we are. This is the first Joe S. This was built early 1900s. This is actually taken at Parkersburg below the mouth of the Little Canal River. Got wooden barges. So that is the first Joe S. And this is the second Joe S. gas boat. So obviously it's typical gas boat construction. Your engine's up front, got belts going all the way to the back, and so it was we felt the name needed to be back on a boat. So the connection, this is Joe S. Towing Landing, actually on the Little Canal River in the early 1960s. The Joe S., both versions of the Joe S. were long, long gone by this point. So when the IRC bill was there, you had the Marguerite in the background. You can see she actually doesn't have a wheel on her right there. She's a landing boat. She's ready to be scrapped. And you got a little boat up in the bow. So in the 1960s, the Neale family was a farm family. The senior Neale, who Jeff talked about earlier, he worked the daytime. He worked at the Parkersburg News and Sentinel, regional manager. In the evening he worked at that. In the daytime he farmed. So business opportunity presented in the 1960s. Like, you know what? We live on the river. We love the river. Let's get it started. So they actually had a runabout boat, and one time after they bought the business, they went going northbound to Pittsburgh. They stopped at Larry Geisler's place, which is now owned by the Abbott family, and he's down there talking to him. He's like, "Where y'all from?" "Parkersburg, West Virginia." "Oh yeah, some damn farmers bought a boat business down there. What in the world are they doing in that?" Okay. But at this point, there were no licenses. If you could run a boat, you run a boat. You didn't have to have the Coast Guard to tell you, hey, you can run a boat. So that's where we started. There is the primary boat in the beginning. The mighty David Jones, built in 1944. It was actually a converted World War II landing craft. So I complain about lots of boats and lots of their nuances, and my father will say, "Ain't to David Jones, just keep running it. Just don't worry about it. Just keep going. Suck it up." All right. So all of 450 horsepower at that point. So also they had a boat that they had leased at that point, and it was the Acadian. It built in 1962. It had triple screw jimmies in it, but that was a loud sucker. 495 horsepower. We're getting pretty big now. So this boat was leased. We actually ran this boat at Belleville Lock during the construction of the lock and dam down there. So those two boats, kind of used them pretty good and kind of came to the point where we needed another boat. But in the contention of before we bought this boat, we're deciding, we had stern wheel boats in the past. Like, do we buy a stern wheel boat? Do we buy a screw boat? What will we buy? Well, on the short list was actually a boat that's now in Taylor Abbott's backyard, Louise. But it was not, and they decided to purchase the Beaver from Bob Bosworth. So that boat was built in 37 as the Dravo 42, and it was built as a twin to the Dravo 43. This boat had quart nozzle. The 43 did not have the quart nozzle. Dravo built that to basically prove the efficiency that the quart nozzle could provide. And it proved that it very efficient. For the size of this boat, it was amazing what it could shove. Had a big, huge Fairbanks Morse engine. We actually still own a spare engine of this boat from the Helen Z, and it is laid down in a field, and it would probably not fit in this area up here, and my mom loves it because she has to mow around it every week. So there's the Beaver. This is actually the Parkersburg Railroad Bridge, and we don't know who's on it. My grandfather might be on it. Don't know, but this is probably one of our favorite pictures, actually, of the Beaver. Obviously, in older boats that you buy, you don't usually have the reliability. So they decided at that point, we need to build a new boat. Brand new boat should have no problems, yada, yada, yada. So contracted with Humboldt Boat Company, the Tubbs family in St. Louis, and built the Richard Neale in 1972. 670 horsepower. You can see we're every little iteration, we're getting a little bit better. 12 V71s at this point. And Dan Owen actually took this picture in St. Louis Harbor. He was their unofficial photographer, so thankfully we have Dan, and he took that picture. So this is actually the original fuel bill. Yes, we are a bit of a pack rat sometime, and the original fuel bill is still in the desk, the original bill of sale in the desk. So you can see that 18 cents a gallon, 1972. Yep. So, well, some days we're lucky to be pack rats. So there's the boat in later years, but you can see that the collars are yellow and green. Now, this is a question that I'm asked many times. How in the world did you come up to paint your boats yellow and green? Well, it was this boat right here that started it all. It was absolutely a mistake. 100%. Humboldt Boat Company was the primary builder of boats for Capt Marine Towing out of Missouri, up on the upper Mississippi River. Apparently, somebody at Humboldt Boat Company did not get the memo that this boat was supposed to be white and red for Neale Towing Company, Joe S. Towing Company, and not Canton Marine, yellow and green. So the crew shows up to bring the boat home. Why in the world is this boat yellow and green? Oh, crap. All right, just take it home. We'll send you the paint. You all can paint it. No big deal. We'll get it good. They get running home. This ain't so bad. It's actually pretty good paint. And boats would call them, boy, that's a unique paint scheme. We really like that. Well, kind of stuck. So that is the story of how our boats ended up yellow and green. And eventually the whole fleet ended up yellow and green. You can see this is actually the Beaver down there to the left. It was painted yellow and green. This is the only picture I've found of that boat in yellow and green colors. Now this was taken in mid-late 70s. And at this point, we had moved from our landing on the Little Canal River to the Ohio River landing on the family farm. We said you can get more business being out on the Ohio River, and that's where we ended up. So this was pretty much the start of the current facility that actually you all went by last night. If you were on the Moonlight Cruise, you went by all the barges last night down there. So the business was growing, and that was a good thing, and we decided to build another boat. This was actually the third new boat we had built at that time. So this was the Diane Neale, which we actually still own today. We don't own the Richard Neale yet. We sold it. So getting more in horsepower, 850 horsepower. So the boat is still 850 horsepower today, and I still run this boat pretty much primarily unless something happens. Or my wife gets mad at me and say, hey, run my boat. So you can see, we started out a farm family, became a towboat family, but, the farming was still there. And we actually farmed Neale Island, right above Parkersburg. And the only way to get to an island is with a towboat and a barge. And you can see we are Alice Chalmers tractor in the previous picture. That's an Alice Chalmers combine in this picture, still an Alice Chalmers family. So once we find with something, we kind of stick with it. So in the 80s, everybody knows the downturn we had in the 80s. Everybody overbuilt equipment big time. And, it was not feasible to build much new equipment at that time. There was a surplus glut on the market, and your best bet was to find a boat that was previously built. And that's where we went. This boat was in Morgan City, Louisiana. And the crazies back in decided, we're going to run a boat home from Morgan City, Louisiana. And they did. So we purchased this boat in early 90s, and they ran the boat up Port Allen route, got out to Baton Rouge, and got a ride in tow, and they got towed all the way northbound. So that boat became the C.R. Neale III. I wouldn't know who that would be. And not too far after we got that boat, something happened in Marietta. The Delta Queen broke down in Marietta and could not move under her own power. And so they called us up. We're the closest operator. And, of course, our insurance company said, no. Why do you want to move a passenger boat? We're like, we got to. Got to keep this boat on schedule. We're going there at 5 o'clock tonight. You figure it out by then. And away we went. Sent 2 boats, and only had changed the name boards, didn't even get, the yellow and green on it yet. It's still the former colors. So that boat towed. We sent 2 boats up, and that boat was on schedule all the way into Louisville. They finally got the boat. They was able to get the parts switched out in Louisville, and away she went after that. But no problems. Of course, they made all of our crew members wear the Delta Queen. I would have hated it because you had to wear all the Delta Queen suits and whatnot. So I would have not liked not being able to wear shorts. So things get better in the 90s, and we start building boats again and decide to build a boat, named after my grandfather. And this boat was built in 1998 by Marine Builders. 1,800 horsepower, still getting up there. We actually had that boat. We built that in Marine Builders right there. They built a lot of our boats. They built the Diane Neale, so stuck with them, and they built this boat. This boat was actually built, and it was started out as a spec hull, and it was in Louisville in the 97 flood. And they actually had to cut holes in this hull, and they had to let this hull sink in the 97 flood because you don't want a hull to float away in the flood. So it was still a big problem getting all the crud, and we spent years getting the hull painted on the inside because all the crud was still in it. But so not too long after we got that boat, we got a phone call saying, hey, we need you to take a tow to New Orleans. Now this tow was very unique. This tow had a huge mirror in it, big, about a foot and a half thick, all mounted on truck airbags pretty much. And it could not go in a tow, it could not go in a tramp tow because you could not slam the lock wall with it. You couldn't do anything crazy with it, or that mirror inside it would crack. So this, basically the rear one, the green one, is actually the mirror in it itself. And there's a little bit younger me wearing shorts. And this thing had G sensors in it. It had a husband and wife crew that rode this boat from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to New Orleans, Louisiana, and had a laptop on the back of the pilot house. And if you hit that lock wall too hard, it had alarms that go off. So it was a pretty crazy move. 3 months after we built this boat, all right, there she goes to New Orleans. So kind of a common theme. They got to Memphis, Tennessee, and a hurricane was coming into New Orleans. So 10 days in Memphis, Tennessee, looking at the same spot, waiting out, because you obviously don't want this thing in a hurricane getting tossed and turned. So that whole trip, they went from Parkersburg to Pittsburgh, loaded in Pittsburgh, all the way to New Orleans, transloaded into a ship, and then across Mississippi Sound, Mobile, Alabama, up the Tenn-Tom, 45 days. So, yeah. I made 3 of those, but regretfully, they didn't let me make any locks at that point. I was kind of mad, but in retrospect, that was probably a good idea. So, building continues. There's the next new build. There's the J. Carroll Neale. I wouldn't know who that would be named for. So, getting back down a little horsepower, we decided we needed some more harbor boats. You don't need to be burning a whole lot of fuel in the harbor. This was doing pretty good. So, this is 2004, the day before sea trials. So, everything went good. Then in 2005, we decided to get into a rebuild project. Of course, we originally wanted to buy a boat called the Stephen Joseph, big Dravo 3,200 horsepower boat. And Nelson Jones said, hey, you don't want a boat that big. Why don't you go buy the Humphrey? It's up there in Pittsburgh. So we bought the Humphrey. The Humphrey is actually a venerable boat. That boat used to tow coal. It towed coal empties up from Weirton to West Elizabeth, loads down. Nobody could beat her. She was a fast boat, and even the bigger horsepower boats, you couldn't catch her. She had 2 Superiors in it. Fast boat. All right, we actually bought it as a landing boat, and the stern was in such good shape that we decided to start a rebuild project. Well, that rebuild project is still underway from 2005, hopefully wrapping it up very soon. It's kind of been what's next? But here's a photo of it on sea trials. Somebody ran the math wrong, and the wheels were overpitched, and that was last year, and it's been quite a while getting new shafts built, new wheels pitched, and as of last month, the wheels were on it, so we're getting a few things done, getting it ready to go, get a COI on it, be ready to go with it. Keep building the new program. Here's my newest boat. They sold my boat in 2010. I thought they was mad at me, so 6 years later, I get my name back on, so I guess I'm back in good graces. So this is a harbor boat, but we do use it on overnights. You'll see this going by Marietta a lot. Then we decided, we need, the Coast Guard regulations coming in. Decided, you need to have some extra boats to run. That way, when something goes wrong, you park one, you run another one, you do your maintenance, whatnot. So, bought 2 boats from Ingram in 2019, and now my wife ends up with a boat. So, we're running out of names here. So, I almost didn't put this slide in, and I was going to be in really big trouble. So there's the fleet today. This was taken about a month ago. It goes from, you saw the boats in the beginning. We start from 1 boat, 1 leased boat, and end up with 9 boats, towboats, a sternwheel boat, a dry dock, and a landing boat, the old Fred Way. So quite a bit of growth in that time frame. But I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge my grandfather. We lost him in July, and he was the patriarch of our family. And this picture to the left, he pulled me in. He's like, you know what? Get in this picture. Why? Not just get in this picture. So, of course, if you don't recognize, you have Kennedy to the left, you have Harry White next, Captain Bob Bosworth next, my grandfather, younger me, and my father. Of course, you have my grandfather, you have Murdy Boggs, so quite a good establishment there. So, well, that is the end. I hope you enjoyed the history of Joe S. Towing, the Joe S. Thank you.